channel, and today I wanted to talk about collars. I don't know if this gave it away. I am absolutely obsessed with Ganni right now. They are kind of like really famous for their like big oversized collars, and then they also sell these like detachable collars that you can kind of put on top of anything. I think it's really cute and it really changes what the outfit looks like. So let's get into this DIY. So let's talk design process. I kind of didn't know what I was doing, so I draped it on my mannequin and kind of trial and errored this. Long story short, I cut it to what I wanted my bib to look like, and then I used that and worked backwards and created a pattern. So I folded this in half and then traced it on a paper, and that's how I made my pattern. And I drew an inch seam allowance just to incorporate some mistake room. So I'm a pattern novice, so I completely forgot that I'm going to be putting this on a folded piece of fabric, and therefore the middle part needs to not have that quarter or inch seam allowance. And as you can see, I'm cutting it off there. I took the paper pattern and put it on a folded piece of fabric. Again, this is just me testing this out to make sure that I actually made the right pattern. Once I cut it out, I was able to confirm that this was in fact a bib shape. After all the trial and error, I have brought to you a collar pattern. Ooh, ah. So this is what I used for the collar. I used 2 of the collar pattern. I used 1 inch thick piece of fabric for the ribbon of the collar, and then I used another long strip of fabric that was 2 inches thick for the ruffle. To make the collar base, I used the pattern I made and traced it on a folded piece of fabric like I mentioned earlier. Cut this out, and once you unfold it, you get a full collar. I did this 2 times to get a front and a back. Since we're sandwiching the ruffle, that's why you need the front and the back. Just an FYI. Now moving on to the ruffle. This is the most tedious part, but it adds a lot of drama. So it's a 2 inch wide by 100 or 100 plus inch long piece of fabric. This is because when we're ruffling it, it's gonna shrink a lot, and so we have to kind of take that into account. So I folded the fabric in half and I used a basting stitch, and I stitched it along the raw edge. I left a little bit of extra thread, and I used this and I pulled this, and that's basically how you make a ruffle. This is honestly the tedious part because you have to be careful not to break the thread. Moving on to the ribbon, this is a little bit tedious. I said the last part was tedious, but this is very tedious. Basically what you need is a rectangle of fabric, 1 inch wide by, I don't know, however long you want your ribbon to be. And basically what we do here is fold it into quarters and iron it. So like most 20-somethings, I absolutely hate ironing. I don't do it very often, so I'm not good at it, and I always end up managing to burn myself. However, in this case, I would recommend you to do it because I tried to sew this without ironing it, and it was like a hot mess, minus the pun. So if you hate ironing, just buy bias tape. So when I started this project, I thought I could do it in an hour, so I started a timer. And oh, was I sorely mistaken, because not only did it take much longer than an hour, it took me about 6 months to edit this video, so we're extremely behind schedule. Alright, so the first thing I did was I cut out the pattern on the folded piece of fabric, and I did this twice, and I unfolded it with the front and the back. Then I went with all of my extra fabric and I tried to piece them together to make these rectangles. Obviously you can just cut it and not worry about scrapping things together, but I just wanted to reuse as much as I could. It was a mix of not wanting to have waste and also like not wanting to have to buy more stuff to do another project because it just gets a lot, you know? Anyways, moving on to the basting stitch, I folded that long rectangle in half and basted, I think? Ugh. Whatever, I sewed along the one edge that is unfinished, and I left extra thread to be able to pull that in order to create that kind of ruffle, that ruche that we want. Once again, you need to be very patient here because if you break that thread, you have to start all over again, and that's going to be way more work. So just be really patient and just pull the thread. For me, this took around 20 minutes. In the meantime, I also ironed the bias tape-esque ribbon. So this is how I built the bib. I took the front and the back apart and I pinned the ruffle inside. The idea being here, I'm pinning all of the raw edges together and I'm pinning the right sides together because I'm going to flip it inside out.
Once I flip it inside out, all the raw edges will be inside and I don't have to worry about finishing any seams or edges. So I sewed along this outside edge, I flipped it inside out, and as you can see, the neck is not finished, and this is where that kind of bias ribbon comes into play. I pinned the ribbon along the inside neck area and I finished everything with a single stitch. And that's it, it's done. We're at our, I don't know, 25 at this point, and I came across the Ganni Instagram page and I saw that they have another bib, and I took it upon myself to attempt it in this video. So collar pattern part 2. Absolutely the same way of doing the other collar, except 1, no ruffle, thank God, and number 2, the ribbon is stitched under instead of over the pattern. That makes things, again, a little bit easier because you don't have to be so worried about precision. This pattern is way easier. All you need is the bib pattern itself, 2 of them, and 1 ribbon to finish it off. Anyways, it's the same process. You take the half pattern, you put it on a folded piece of fabric, and you do that twice. I cut the 2 patterns out, and I also cut out the ribbon rectangle. I was feeling spicy, so I went with a pattern. I went with this striped pattern, and I didn't want to use too much of that fabric, so I used the rest of the white sheet for the back side of the bib. Once again, I sewed the right sides together, I sewed along the edge, and I flipped it inside out. I finished the open edge with the sewing machine, and then I added the ribbon at the end on the inner side. And that's it. Yay!
Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you liked it. I am very excited for my many bibs. I think it's a major look. I think I know I look like a weird kind of fashion version of a pilgrim, and I'm okay with that. I think I've seen people looking at me funny wearing this, but that is more of a reflection of where I live, not how cute this is. Also, maybe this isn't the mainstream yet, but I would very much love it to be. I hope you like this video. If you try making this bib, leave a comment, let me know how it goes. Would love to hear some feedback, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!